Lastly, we have this function for the second form, and what we want to do is create a function that works as a result of the event on the submit button. So let's do that. Our last part of the init all will be to add an event listener to the submit button on the pizza form. So we'll say document dot get element by ID. We're talking about the pizza form, and we're going to say on submit equal calculate. So we're going to make a function called calculate. We have gotten our event settled in on submit, part of the pizza form, the document, and we're going to equate it with a function called calculate. If you remember over here in the source code, toward the bottom, in this form, the ID of this form is pizza form. It's not exactly original, but hey. So what we need to do is go down here and create a function that deals with this. So we'll say function, and we will say calculate, function calculate, and I'll save real quick and go in. And the first thing we really want to do is stop the button from doing anything but what we want it to do. The way you do that is by telling it to return nothing or return false. Returning false will stop, most of the time, will stop most default actions from happening. So that's a good thing in our case because we don't want to submit the form anywhere to any database, for instance. But we need to set up some variables. We're going to try and calculate a total, so let's create some variables that would hold that. So let's go in, let's create a variable called total. Again, a very original name. And we're going to need to take these fields. If you look at that form, we need to create variables for these fields here. So let's do that. The variable of quantity is equal to document.getElement by ID. And we want the quantity field. Now, what we want to do, though, is grab the value out of that field. So the property for value is called, conveniently enough, value. Awesome. Might not be a bad idea to throw some of this in the console.log if you want to kind of watch, and we might do that in a minute. A variable called price is equal to document.getElement ID, and again price. And we're looking to get the value from it. See a pattern here, I hope. We're going to have a variable of tax that's equal to document.getElement by ID, and we're going to say tax dot value, and last but not least, we're going to say variable discount equals document.getElement by ID and discount dot value. Like I said, it's kind of nice to check and make sure we're grabbing something. I'm just going to put one in here. We'll say console.log, and we'll say, let's say quantity, comma, price, comma. This is going to get a little gnarly because I need to separate these values, these variables, with some little indicators. So maybe I will say with a little quote P equals, and concatenate that. Maybe say Q equals, and concatenate that. And tax would be T, and then concatenate it. And remember, we're talking about parameters because we're running console.log is essentially a method for an object. Otherwise, we wouldn't need the commas. And D equals, and try concatenate that. Let's see what happens here. Let's go and let's show our Firebug, and let's hit reference when we hit calculate, and we get quantity 199 6.50. Awesome. Looks like we're working just fine. Now we need to do some calculations, straight kind of math. Just think about this. We've captured all our data and we just need to work with it a little bit. So let's go in here and say total is equal to quantity times price. It's pretty straightforward. How many are you buying? How much are they a piece? Quantity times price is equal to total. Then we'll take the value for tax because it's a straight number, and what we're going to use one of the shortcuts. Instead of saying tax equals tax divided by 100, we'll say tax divided equals 100. That'll give us a decimal. We need to increment tax by 1, tax plus plus. And let me walk through that in a second and show you what it's doing to the numbers with console.log. And we'll say total is multiplied equal to tax. What that's doing is saying here total is equal to total times tax, and we'll say total minus equals discount. In other words, we're subtracting the discount from the total. And then we will say, last but not least, we want to format it nice and neat. So we'll say total is equal to total dot toFixed is a method, works on, so it's a part of the numbers math kind of package for JavaScript. It's very handy. You'll probably end up using it a lot to format stuff. And then we need to set our total field. We need to put something in it, so we'll say we need to go grab it. So document get element by ID total, and what we're going to do is set it equal to total. And we've already got a return false down here. So what we're doing is we're setting up all our variables, checking them with console.log, and we're doing some math. I want to walk through that a little bit. So I'm going to put in some console.logs. We'll say console.log. I think I'll copy that so it's not so hard to type all of this. Doesn't take quite so long. So we'll say total. After the tax, we'll say tax let's put in here divided by 100. And down here, let's put in another one, console.log tax. And this one will say plus plus. And then we'll say another console.log. We'll put in total. And this one's plus tax. And finally, we'll put in console.log and put in a, let's see here, discount, and just discount. That way we can follow the logic here, and that's just going to round it. Don't think we need it. So let's go check and see what happens. Hit refresh, hit calculate, and notice down here we've got a few things going on. We've got all our stuff. We've got our quantity times, our total quantity times price per unit. We've got 0.065 as far as a tax rate. 0.065 is what you'd multiply it times to get the tax. We added 1 to it, so it would multiply it times itself once, and adding the 0.065 tax. Think about that for a second. 0.065 give you the tax part, and the 1 would give you the total part. So it's taking the total, multiplying it times 1.065. Then we got the 10.639 blah blah blah, and we're rounding it after we have a discount of 0. I've probably formatted some of the little labels wrong on that, which is why we're getting a not a number error. But let's put a discount of 5 in there, tax rate of 7.5. Let's order 6 pizzas and see what happens. And I could probably clear that before I ran it. So it's clear, and let's calculate. And there we go. We've got our numbers coming in, our raw total, our tax rate, 0.75. What we're going to multiply it times, our raw number, and our discount. Fascinating. So, if you go through this methodology, and let's go and look at the code again. This final function is right there. If you're looking at this in high res on YouTube, you can pretty much copy it, but getting all your I's dotted and your T's crossed can be time consuming. You'll inevitably run across an error in typing, so just be careful. Learn a lot by doing this. The things you're going to add to this are the following, and instructions are on Blackboard. For the second form, one thing before we go back and look at that, most of the time you'll put all your functions before you put your code. I just did it this way, put my functions after my code, made it easy to type and follow and scroll along. But normally what I would do is I'd define all my functions first before I did my code. But let's go back and look at the source code. We're leaving the nav bar alone, just basically mimic what we did here in the exercise, and doing it will be an education. For our second form, what we want to do is add this little curve to the exercise and say, when one of these fields in this first form, the form called newsletter form, when the on blur event happens, restore it. If they typed in nothing, if it's completely blank, if it's the field is completely blank, then restore it to its previous value. You'll have to store the initial value, and if on blur it's equal to quote unquote nothing, then restore it to its previous value. And on this form, go ahead and apply it so that when you have a field that becomes in focus, that the background color changes to something of your preference. So in that third area, the second form, the form label pizza form, you want to do some JavaScript that makes all these text fields change the background color when they go in focus. And the first form up here, the newsletter form, you want to restore the initial state if somebody deletes what was in the field. So the initial value for this field is called your name. If they delete your name, don't put anything else in it, you want to restore it to your name. So if you have any questions, email me, give me a call, and we'll work through it.